Chapter 2. As Dr. Adam came closer, the dog began to tremble and tried to wriggle herself even closer to Mandy. "She's really upset, Dad. I was going to come and get you, but she got herself into such a state I was scared to leave her." Dr. Adam nodded. "Keep talking, Mandy. If she realizes me being here isn't worrying you, she might accept it too." Mandy stroked the dog's head and face with gentle fingers. "It's all right, Goldie," she said quietly. "We're going to help you." Mandy was still kneeling back on her heels and wished she could move into a more comfortable position, but the dog whined and kept wriggling. By now, her chest and most of her body was over Mandy's legs. "Keep still, girl," Mandy pleaded. "You might injure your puppies wriggling like this." "There, that's better. That's right. Nice and still. You've stopped trembling. Are you going to make friends with Dad now?" "Puppies?" whispered Dr. Adam, crouching down beside them. "I think she's very pregnant, Dad," Mandy gulped. She was tied up to one of the heavy flower pots, and she was dragging it along behind her, trying to reach the door. Dr. Adam looked grim, but his voice was gentle and reassuring as he spoke to the dog. "Hello, girl. There's a good dog. Come on, let me have a look at you." The dog looked at the hand he was holding out, then raised her head to look at Mandy. "It's okay, Goldie. Let Dad check you over." Mandy took Dr. Adam's hand in hers and drew it closer to the dog's face. "There, see? That's it. You're letting him pet you now. There's a good girl." "I don't suppose there was an address on the name tag?" Dr. Adams asked as he ran his hands over the dog's back and sides. "There isn't a name tag." Mandy shook her head. "I just had to call her something. I don't know why it didn't seem right to say dog or girl all the time. Not when she was feeling alone. And who?" Mandy forced herself to stop talking. She wanted to ask, who could have done a thing like this? But she knew the anger would have shown in her voice, and that would have worried the poor animal even more. Instead, she watched with anxious eyes while Dr. Adam continued to run his hands over the dog. "Her abdomen is very saggy," he said, glancing up at Mandy. "You're right, she is very pregnant. In fact," he stroked his beard thoughtfully, "I think the pups are due any day now. I'll give her a more thorough examination. But for now, has she had anything to drink?" "I got the milk out of the fridge, but that's as far as I got," Mandy told him. She sighed with relief as the dog moved off her legs. "Don't move too far away from her," said Dr. Adam. "She's calmed down a lot, and her breathing's not so panicky. I'll warm some milk and bring it over." Dr. Adams placed the bowl of milk in front of her a few minutes later. At first the dog just stared at it. Then Mandy saw her lick her lips, and she held her breath as Goldie got to her feet. But she just sniffed at the bowl and then turned her head to gaze at Mandy with reproachful eyes. "What's the matter, girl? Don't you like milk?" "Maybe she wants water, Dad." "I think she wants something." But the golden retriever didn't even bother to sniff at the bowl of water when it was offered. "Come on, Goldie," Mandy said, slowly petting the dog. "At least drink a little." Finally, the golden retriever bent her head down to the bowl. "Well, she's not overly enthusiastic, but at least she's drinking it," said Mandy. As they watched the dog slowly lapping, Mandy asked her dad about the phone call. "I'm almost sure it was made from a phone booth," said Dr. Adam. "I could hear traffic in the background. It was a woman. She sounded upset, but she only asked if we'd found a dog at the door before hanging up." "Do you think Goldie's her dog? Do you think she abandoned her? Or could she have stolen Goldie and panicked when she realized she had a pregnant dog on her hands?" Dr. Adam didn't have time to answer. Goldie suddenly lifted her head from the bowl and stared intently toward the door. "It's Mom," said Mandy, moving swiftly. "I'd better warn her to come in quietly. She intercepted her mom at the door and explained the situation. "I can't leave you two alone for a second, can I?" Emily Hope was shaking off her outdoor coat as she spoke. She wasn't looking at her daughter or her husband, but her green eyes were on the dog. Mandy caught her father's gaze. The golden retriever hadn't moved, but she was looking at Dr. Emily, and her long, feathery tail was moving ever so slightly. "Are you coming to say hello?" Dr. Emily stayed where she was, crouched down, and held out her hand. "I want to see if she'll come to me," she said quietly. "Do you know her name?" "I call her Goldie," Mandy replied. "I don't think your mom's going to have to call her anything," Dr. Adams whispered. Mandy nodded and smiled. The dog was walking slowly but surely toward Dr. Emily. "She's a beauty," said Dr. Emily. "Well cared for, too, from the look of her. But she's worried and disoriented, aren't you, girl? You're with strangers and there are no familiar smells or toys or a rug for you. Poor Goldie." "I don't think Goldie really is her name," said Mandy. "It will do for now." Dr. Emily was still concentrating on the dog, who was moving closer and closer. Mandy held her breath as she watched to see what would happen. When Goldie reached Dr. Emily, she sat down. Then, with her head slightly to one side, she lifted a paw. Mandy felt a great lump in her throat while she watched the two of them. The dog's brown eyes held such a sad look as she sat there with her paw trustingly in Dr. Emily's hands. They stayed like that for a few seconds. Then Goldie withdrew her paw and stood up. She looked over toward Mandy and Dr. Adam before walking over to them. "An encouraging sign," murmured Dr. Adam. "Don't move yet, Mandy. Let the dog play it her way." This time the dog gave a little grunt as she sat down and held up a paw. She was looking at Dr. Adam, so he stepped forward first. "Still wary of me, aren't you, girl?" he murmured, noting the slight tremble and the speed at which the retriever withdrew her paw. "I don't think she's used to men," he added, glancing at his wife as he moved away. She definitely seems to relate better to females." A small smile touched Dr. Emily's lips as Goldie shuffled, still sitting, a couple of inches closer to Mandy. Mandy knelt down in front of Goldie before taking her paw. She was pleased to see that the dog's eyes were starting to lose their hurt expression. "She must be feeling safe with us now," said Mandy, using her free hand to gently play with the soft fur on Goldie's chest. "She needs a closer examination than the one I gave her," said Dr. Adam, "and we need to check to see if she's been microchipped." Mandy knew that a lot of owners had a number microchip injected painlessly into their pet's neck. Most vets, police station, and branches of the SPCA had a special scanner they could use to reveal the number. "I hadn't got around to thinking of that," said Mandy. "If Goldie has been microchipped, someone will be able to trace her owner, won't they?" Dr. Emily nodded. "Either way, we'll have to inform all the authorities as soon as we know. I think it would be best if you and I handle her, Mandy. Let's see if we can get her to come through to the clinic." "You think you could finish making dinner, Dad?" said Mandy. "The sandwiches are all ready to toast. Poor Mom must be starving." "I am," agreed Dr. Emily. "But as always, it's animals first," laughed Mandy and Dr. Adam together. "No microchip," reported Dr. Emily, after she'd run the scanner over Goldie's neck. "And no name on the collar, either. Put it back on, Mandy. Then you can hold her steady while I listen to her heart and lungs." Mandy watched Dr. Emily's expression carefully and smiled when her mother gave a satisfied nod. "No problems there," she said. "Ears, eyes, mouth, and nose are fine too. I think she's about 18 months old, and this is probably her first pregnancy." "Her nails feel naturally short." Mandy leaned over to feel for herself, and Dr. Emily continued, "So it seems as though she is used to walking on sidewalks or rough roads. Indoor dogs, or ones who only have a yard for exercising in, usually need their nails trimmed with clippers. Goldie's turned out to be a good name for her, chuckled Mandy. She's being as good as gold. She doesn't seem to mind being up on the examination table at all. Not up until now, said Dr. Emily, as she smiled and reached for a pair of rubber gloves from the cart. She might not be so happy with this next part, though. I want to take her temperature. Mandy watched as her mother got a snub-nosed glass thermometer, then spoke soothingly to Goldie. The dog flinched a bit, but she didn't struggle. There, I'm proud of you, whispered Mandy. It won't take long, girl, murmured Dr. Emily. Is her temperature okay? Asked Mandy half a minute later, when her mother removed the thermometer. Slightly below normal, just a little over 98.6. Is that something to worry about, Mom? Not in the way that you would think. A normal temperature is around 101 or 102. But in a pregnant dog, a dropping temperature is one of the signs that the pups are within a day or two of being born. Dad thought they were due any day, said Mandy as she helped Dr. Emily lift the heavy dog from the table to the floor. What are we going to do, Mom? What if nobody's reported her missing? Where will she go to have her pups? Dr. Emily took a leash from the hook on the door and clipped it onto the dog's collar before replying. One thing at a time, Mandy. We'll take some food in with us. You can get her a meal while Dad and I sort a few things out. Come on, girl, she added, patting the top of her leg to encourage the dog to follow her. She passed Mandy a can of special dog care food and a packet of dry food from the display in the reception area, and the three of them walked through the connecting door back into the kitchen. But Goldie whined anxiously and pulled toward the back door. Shall I take her into the yard, Mom? Mandy asked. I'll keep her leash on, but she couldn't get out anyway. The gate's shut. I came in that way. Yes, keep a good hold on the leash, though I don't think she'll try to run off. She might just have to go to the bathroom. Leave the door open and call out if you need any help. Sniffing here and there, the golden retriever walked around the yard for a while before crouching down. Good girl, praised Mandy. Should we go back in now, and you can get something to eat? Goldie seemed only too anxious to go back inside. When Mandy unclipped the leash, she went straight for the spot in front of the stove. Dr. Emily was munching a raw carrot. Just something to snack on, she said. Your dad's gone to make a few phone calls. The kettle's boiled, and I've put some yeast extract in that jug. You can make some gravy to soak the dry food in. How much of everything? Asked Mandy. Just soak a very small handful of the dry food, then mix it with a quarter of the canned meat. Are we not giving her much in case the food doesn't agree with her, Mom? Dr. Emily smiled. That would be a reason normally, but even if we knew what Goldie's usual diet was, we'd still only give her a small portion to prevent her from feeling bloated. At this stage of pregnancy, it's best to feed a dog little and often rather than giving her 1 or 2 main-sized meals. And it wouldn't surprise me if Goldie didn't want anything to eat at all. Because she's in a strange place, Mom? That could be a reason, of course, but refusing food is another sign that the pups are only a day or 2 away from being born. Dr. Emily smiled. We'll see what happens when you give her some. Who's Dad calling? Asked Mandy as she opened the can. The police, the dog warden, the SPCA, Betty Hilder, and the Golden Retriever Rescue. Dr. Emily smiled. Though, unless it was a dog thief with an attack of guilty conscience who called, which is extremely unlikely, I very much doubt there will be any record of a missing Golden Retriever that matches the description of this dog. What comes next, then? Asked Mandy. She kept on mixing the dog food, but turned her head to look down at Goldie. The dog was lying on one side, her body slightly curled, and her legs stretched out. She'd crossed one front paw over the other. Her head was resting on the floor, and she was watching Mandy. Mandy stopped what she was doing and kneeled down beside the dog. Goldie licked Mandy's hand and gave a little whine. "I just hope that nobody's coming to take her away to the dog pound," thought Mandy as she played gently with Goldie's ears.